right. Welcome to the Big Black Tent. I'm Naima Freedom.
I'm Natalie. I know.
Well, we've got lots to talk about. Deep breath, lots
Deep
of things.
breaths.
Anything that comes to mind? I know I want to talk about apologies, but anything more pressing?
No, I don't know. It's been a lot of stuff, child, going on. We are nearing the last days of 2024, calendar year 2024. It's not my new year. I said this before, like it's not my new year. Talk to me in March or April, then we'll be talking about New Year's. But it's a lot of people ramping up, so there might be some topics around 2025, maybe. I don't know.
That's true. And I thought you were going to say we're nearing the last days of humanity. I
Well,
did
that
think
too. That too. But that's yes. Yes,
that's
that sounds like me.
well, I was this last podcast, we were talking about a lot. We were talking about arguments, and then we talked about the skills of apology. And I was looking at the videos, a lot of posts off Instagram that showed indicators, right?
Okay.
That showed indicators of any relationship. And based on the maturity and the dynamic of a relationship, depends whether or not apologies are possible.
Well,
Right?
that is true. That is
I
true.
was like, this might not be the dynamic in which that is going to exist or exist the way that you think it should. It's a skill set,
It is a skill set. It is a
and
skill
if
set.
your relationship does not include mutual respect, maturity, all these things, then that's just not happening.
That is it's not. That's true. Not I mean, you do, you have to have a certain level of maturity, one, to recognize that, that you contributed, you either are the problem or you contributed to the problem, like what your portion was of the issue. And most people, I'll say this forever, most people just aren't self-aware. I was listening to something that Warren Buffett was talking about when he was doing an interview, and he was just like, think about, he was like, think about um the things that he was talking about in a workplace, and he was like, think about the things that you really appreciate about your friends and your colleagues and all these things. He was like, the people you surround you with, there's probably people that you look up to that you think have admirable traits. Um, and um, think about those things and write them down, whatever. And then just don't do the opposite of that. Just don't be the person who is not the admirable thing that you like.
Mm.
Um, and I was like, boy, he said that like it was real easy. He said that, I mean, like I mean, it sounds even to me like I'm like, it sounds easy. Just don't do the thing you hate. You hated getting your head bashed in. Don't go bash somebody else's head in. Like, just don't do the thing that you hated. Don't be that person. But that also requires a significant amount of self-awareness to recognize that you have those behavioral traits and characteristics, and that you exhibit those. And if you're not self-aware, you won't know that you have those things. And so you just be walking through life wreaking carnage, leaving carnage everywhere, just wreckage, just a trail of bodies, wake of bodies. Um, and you won't even know it was you. You just be looking like, oh, why these people, whatever, like all the things, right? And there'll always be an outward projection of what somebody else should have done, could have done, would have done, why they didn't do this, X, Y, and Z. So,
No, you're right. That takes a great amount of awareness, and it's painful. And
mm,
since we constantly talk about change and people don't like to change, and usually, unfortunately, pain being one of the main motivators in my life, usually is painful. So people usually aren't trying to change because it's painful. So what curbs that? I think it's Newton's law, right?
mm,
We meet the equal opposite force exhibiting that behavior. When it's too painful to remain the same.
right.
One thing I want to bring up as an elementary educator is I see this all the time, and I hate it. So in social emotional learning, I think it was on lesson 10 that there is the apology skill set. It's lesson 10, which means you got to get past the first lesson to see if you're going anywhere with the child at all, right?
Yes.
And I hate when most people don't know it, but we repeat this in adult life. The child does something and you say apologize to her, right? And it's an act in saying words, but there's no meaning, there's no comprehension,
Hmm.
there's no understanding.
Correct.
And then you train the victim, right, that now everything's okay and we can go about our business.
Correct. Correct. Because this person said some words.
Because they said some words. And I've had to have my people around me say, we haven't gotten to that skill. Don't teach them to apologize. First, you teach self awareness to the person who did the act and let that person be as angry as they need to be and decide whether or not they want to interact with this person again.
Correct.
Right. Um, but I guess I say that because, man, in order to get to the apology is a whole nother thing. But if all of those things are together, have if we have come up to the point where we understand skill set number 10 of how to apologize, which does not include I'm sorry that you felt right. I'm sorry if I that's not an apology, by the way. you know um again, lack of self-awareness. If it is apology, I love what you said last episode about first understanding that the focus of it is the resolution of the thing, right? The awareness, and then how do we get to the resolution? And is that resolution based on the spiritual concept of atonement, right?
Hmm.
Or reparations? Like what has to happen versus the, okay, I messed up. I realize that, yeah, all right, I get it. Here's my part in it, or man, you went too far. What happens next? What forces that behavior change for you?
I mean, I think it depends because I, I personally think you don't always apologize because you're wrong. That's the first
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? It's not always because what you did was wrong. So that's
Okay. Okay.
that. So you can apologize because something that you did that you stand 10 toes down on doing and would do again, right? Potentially, right? Um, affected somebody in a very specific way,
Mm, that.
right? And if you care about that person, it was never your intention necessarily to affect that person in that way. And so now you have a data point that says, okay, when I say or do or behave in this way, it affects this person this way. They interpret that in this way. Um, then you can certainly apologize to that person in the fact that that was not your intent. Your intent was not to cause them to experience whatever, right? So that's one thing. You can also apologize when you actually did something wrong. Just and recognize that you were wrong in doing it. Um, and so I think it requires you to pay attention. And it also has to merit an apology. Because, I'll tell you right now, there's plenty of things I done did that the people who I did them to, I could care less about. So I'm not apologizing because I don't really care. I don't care enough about whatever you thought was the relationship, whatever, like I don't care. So walk away with whatever feelings, whatever narrative you have about the situation, and fine. Um, so you also have to, uh, you also have, she's like, okay, well, let me see about this apology situation.
You know how to apologize? Sorry. Sorry.
She's like, sorry, that's it. Sorry.
Sorry. You want to go get breakfast? It's in the microwave with the hot cocoa.
Ooh, hot cocoa. I had hot cocoa this morning. Yum.
Hot cocoa. Say hello. Hi. It's ready for you. I'm gonna be doing the meeting, so go look. I'll give you permission to watch cartoons and go eat your breakfast. Wait, Mommy. Yes. Can my melody have a list? Yes, after the podcast. Yay! Bye-bye. And Melody is the dog, right? My Melody. My Melody is the dog. From Hello Kitty. From Hello Kitty. Okay.
Well, because we got dogs and we got things. We have a few. We have something to look forward to. That is
Like you were ignoring my relationship. You didn't give her a list like me. My Melody is a rabbit. Is a rabbit. Okay. Product placement. Maybe we'll get paid.
product placements. We should just pop up in the middle what that is, and then have a link for people to click on.
Is it a rabbit or a little girl? I don't know. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, my Melody. There you go. Um, but okay, so the apology. I love the fact that you said. I love the fact you said a very you said a very big word there that I don't hear a lot, but you said care.
Yeah, you have to care. You have to care. That's the first thing. If you could care less about the thing, then it doesn't matter. And there are situations where you might not. This is why people be like, don't burn bridges. Oh no, I burned some bridges and could care less. I have zero intention of ever going back over that bridge. I will take the long way around. I will swim under the ocean, climb down the mountain, go over it to avoid that bridge, burn it, let it burn. Throw some more lighter fluid on it. Right. So like it's about your perception of the thing, right? That you're supposed to be in relationship with or whatever. So yeah, so I mean, so that's the first thing. I think people always think that apologizing means that they are apologizing for the thing that they did. Now, I think when the person apologizes um for the behavior and they still believe that they were fundamentally justified in the behavior that they did, I think the question then becomes to the other person who's receiving the apology is when you're in dialogue with that person as they apologize and y'all have a conversation about it, is do they intend to continue, right? Do they intend to still have that behavior? Because if you think you're justified, then more than likely you're going to have that behavior again, unless you determine, like there are people in my life who I care about who are um they are non-confrontational. They don't like debating things. They don't like discussions, especially heated discussions. They don't like that. I'm a person who enjoys debating. I love to hear the exchange of ideas. I love to hear somebody else's perspective on it. We don't ever have to agree on the topic being debated, like the outcome of the topic. Like you may never sway me, I may never sway you, but I just want to hear how you think about the situation.
Okay.
And I can go on for hours and hours with some people. And then there are other people who I don't. And out of respect for those people, that's just not what our relationship is, right? So I'm not ever going to bring them a topic where we're going to be debating because that's not what they like to do. I recognize that it brings them great discomfort and angst to be put in that situation. I care about them, so I'm not going to do that. Some people would be like, well, that's diminishing who you are and you're what. I don't think so. I think the same way you show up at work and you have certain behavior that you exhibit at work or at school that you don't necessarily exhibit when you're in the club or eating out with your friends or whatever. Like every situation merits appropriate behavior for that situation.
That's true.
And I don't think it's dimming your light and all this other stuff or whatever. Like, if you agree that you like that person, you care about them, you care about how they interpret things. And granted, it might cause them to need to mature a bit, but if they're not there yet to mature to that space or to show up in a way that you want them to show up, so that they can debate or do whatever it is you want them to do, that's fine too. Again, relationships are about decisions. Apologizing is about how much you care about that particular person and that relationship that you're building with that person or have with that person. And forgiveness is all about you.
Okay, so okay, I've never heard it put this way. So now I ask, is it an apology if you think that your behavior is justifiable? Isn't that just a discussion about why you did what you did?
It could be both, right? If it's the first time that somebody did something, and again, it made you feel a specific way, it's just like I have people who I interact with who haven't met me like in real life or whatever, and they'll come up to me and they'll be like, "Hey, yeah, B, because we whatever, whatever," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, I don't, I don't go with that word B, right?" But that's in your vernacular and lexicon. I'm not telling you to stop saying the word be. If the people in your circle respond to you calling them a female dog, then have at it. Don't let me stop you. Just don't
Oh,
do it with me, right? And so that person can then apologize and say, "Oh, that wasn't my intention. I apologize. It wasn't meant out of malice. It's just a word that we use, and it really means that I like you a lot, right?" And that's their rationale. I'm not going to debate you on the merits of the word, right? It's in your lexicon. That's your thing. Just don't do it at me, right? And so they can apologize for that, and then at that point say, I won't ever use that word with you again.
okay,
Great, right? And so
okay.
that's why I said when someone apologizes but they believe their actions were justified, the
Mhm,
discussion, they can apologize for you not appreciating the behavior that you saw them exhibit or whatever, right?
mhm.
And then after that, and you accept that apology, then the question becomes, are you still going to do that thing, right, with me? And if you say, well, yeah, because I was justified, well, okay, great. Then we probably aren't going to see much of each other anymore after this. But I appreciate your apology and for listening to what I had to say and you sharing how you felt, whatever, great. But if you say, oh, no, 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 I respect you a lot. I won't, just like I have friends who curse. I don't curse. I have friends who curse. I don't really care if they curse around me. But some friends I know are like, oh no, I'm not gonna curse around you because you don't like people because you don't like curse words. And I'm like, it's your lexicon. As long as you ain't cursing at me, I don't care. Um, so you have to you have to acknowledge that people are where they are. They believe what they believe. The question is, do they understand what their belief has done to you, like how you perceived what they did to you, and are they willing to own, right, that you said those things or the way you behaved in this space or whatever, right? I really didn't like that. I didn't like because it was targeted towards me and I didn't like that. And if they own that and they say that was never my intention, but that's a part of who they are, then the question then becomes, are you going to continue to do that around me after I've said it makes me uncomfortable? And if they say, well, yeah, because this is who I am, then okay, great, thank you. We just not gonna spend that much time together no more. Or if they say no, hey, look, I get it. You don't like when I do this thing, so when I'm around you, I'm not gonna do this thing.
Mm,
People who
mm,
smoke
mm.
weed, don't smoke weed around me. I don't. It makes me uncomfortable because the minute I feel like the police could run in here and do something at any point in time, I'm not. I don't look good in orange. Well, actually, I do look good in orange. I just don't want to wear a jumpsuit and shoes that don't have
Stop
laces.
it.
But
Orange is the
but
new black.
so if you can commit to like, yeah, no, I won't come around you smelling like weed. I won't whatever. Great. But if you're like, no, this is my life. This is what I do. This okay, well, great. I'm not trying to change you. Live your life. Smoke weed. I just won't be around you. Right. And both of those sides take some maturity to get to understand.
Right. Ah, growing up.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people get mad because people apologize sincerely, but they don't say that they were wrong, right? Like
Right,
like
right.
like my behavior was wrong. When in fact, it may not be wrong. It just may be something that's unpalatable to you. And you have to recognize that people are people. Um, they do what they do, and it's unpalatable to you. It may not be unpalatable to 20 other people. This is you. So it's about your boundary, you articulating that boundary, someone apologizing for overstepping that boundary, and then how are they going to adjust? How are y'all going to adjust in the relationship based on the boundary that you've established for yourself? Um, and then that's how you determine how you're going to proceed. But I don't necessarily think that everybody always needs to say, I was wrong when I did X, Y, and Z, because you may not be wrong. You just might be wrong to that person. And that's fine too.
Mhm. No, I like listening to this in a couple. I see a couple different things when you speak about this because I think in the adults, well, in the adult world, right, especially at this age in the game, you could pretty much throw wrong and right out the window because it's based on what people's, like you said, what's powerful
Correct.
to you. If you want to dress like a dog and bark like a dog and go to work and look like a dog,
That's fine.
that's your thing. Right? That's your thing. I'm over here doing this.
Correct.
Right. Um, so I love that. I love the fact because I don't think I've ever looked at it that perspective like that before. That right, this is how I be. This is how you be. Where do we fit in the groove with one another? And if this is not congruent, then we get to move around,
Yeah.
right? We get to move around.
You get to
We
move
have
around.
choice.
You have choice.
Um, as,
You
as
always
far
have
as
choice.
we always have
Always
choices,
have
and
choice.
it's
It may
not
not be
about
choices you like, but you always got choice.
right.
Choice.
Like it's not about right, wrong, meaning judgment and shaming and blaming. This
Correct.
is this is what's on the table, and this is what I want in my life, and this is what I don't, or I want in this dose, these doses, this way, right? Like Burger King, have it your way.
That's correct. That's correct. I mean, think about all the things people swear are offensive to them, right? Like there are people who think the person you have a relationship with is offensive. There are
Yeah.
people who think your religious beliefs are offensive. There are people who believe your non-religious beliefs are offensive. So like you can't go around just being like, "Oh, I'm wrong." You're not wrong. That's your belief. If you want to believe in Jesus and I don't believe in Jesus, then I'm not saying I don't, I'm just saying, then cool, right? Like, cool. You don't need to tell me you're wrong and I apologize that I was wrong. I should believe. No, you should. You need to believe whatever you want to believe in, right? Now, if I think that what you have done has disrespected me in some way, I'm going to tell you that. And then you can say that was never my intent. Here was what my intent was, da 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 da. And then we can determine how we move forward in the relationship if you're going to continue to do this around me or not do this around me, right? But people just automatically think that every apology is supposed to be an admission of wrongdoing. And I don't think that's the case.
Mm, mm, okay. So I guess I'm gonna take it back to because I love this back to the care. You having to care in a certain way. There are levels. There's a spectrum of caring, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a rainbow of care, and based on where you are in that relationship, you can switch the dial on what your needs are, and if that need can be met.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. And if not, move around and save yourself the stress and the trauma. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely, definitely. Um, and people's perceptions are their realities, and so they're gonna always live in their own reality and not your reality. And so, maybe what you did is actually wrong, could be, or and you have to take a moment to search yourself to figure out if that resonates with you that it was the wrong thing. Or was it just someone's perception, but you care enough about their perception to offer up an apology around what your intent was and it wasn't your intent to offend them,
Mhm.
um, because you care about them. So, arguably anybody you care about, you would not want to offend or disrespect or whatever the case may be. again, but then also with apology comes behavior changes. So somebody's got to change. Either I'm not going to be offended because I'm going to recognize that that's just who you are, and I'm going to be like, okay, well, I'm not offended, but when they do this thing, because that's just who they are, or they're not going to do that offensive thing when they're around me.
And they're not going to do that offensive thing around me.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the two, but something's got because a behavior change has to happen in that dynamic. It's either going to be you or it's going to be them.
That's
Um,
true.
right. So, and I remember my dad, we used to all go to the YMCA when I was younger, and my dad would play basketball with like all the guys that were out there, and my mom and I would sit and watch, and my brother would be, I don't know what he'd be doing something. But I remember the guy when my dad would walk in with his family, all the guys on the court would be like, "Oh, Bob is here, y'all, Bob's here," and like they would like they wouldn't be cursing anymore. They wouldn't be like because they respected my dad and they knew he had his family with him, and so they would
Ah, that,
change their
that,
approach, right?
that. Yeah.
Now when we weren't there, then I'm sure they had a whole hullabaloo, like curse words, N-word this, all the things, right? But when he walked in with his family, they were like, Bob's here, everybody straighten up, fly right, let's get together, right? So it's to me like it's a social contract that you have in relationship with people. It's a whatever, and so it's that whole dynamic. And again, somebody's behavior has to change for the apology to be received and authentic, right? Somebody's being so either I'm gonna say, okay, I appreciate your explanation, and I now know that that's when you say those things, I now understand why you're saying them, so I won't be offended by that anymore because now I understand the context to why you're saying what you're saying.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to say, okay, I appreciate the apology. I still find it offensive. Please don't do that around me anymore. And that person will say, okay, I respect you enough. I'm not going to do that around you.
Mm, mm. Okay. You brought up something that, oh man, social contract, or construct. But I love that. And it is a social thing and it is an agreement, whether said or unsaid. But I do remember, and maybe there's some spaces, but I do remember a time when women and children would show up, men would, that I was around, would adjust
Yeah.
behaviors. Not to say, like you said, that they weren't doing what they were doing, but sort of like the paper bag over the liquor, or pouring the liquor
Yeah.
to the cup, right? Versus having the bottle out when there were kids around. People used
Right.
to try to be inconsistent.
Right. 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 Try to keep a little
Right,
bit of the innocence around, just a little bit of the innocence. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. That level of care, even if it was debauchery on the, on the end,
Yeah.
debauchery on the inside.
Right.
Um, no, I love that because to me, that is how in my world I framed respect. According to how I was, not even how I was raised, how I shaped my reality, because that's not what went down in my house, but whatever. But that's how I like it. I like to think that is how it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But that you can have an agreement and then you can choose. I love also the fact that right and wrong, right, is something that we use growing up. It's still used in the education system, right? Even when grading, there's right and there's wrong, and we teach children what is right and what is wrong, until they can understand the abstracts of the nuances of the choices,
Yep.
right? But a lot of us are stuck in that right and wrong, right?
Right.
And we never, understand the spectrum of choice and freedom,
Freedom.
right? To
It
make those
really
choices.
boils down to freedom. That's what
Freedom.
freedom. And find
Um,
and find your people who have the same mindset. Like again, if you want to smoke weed all day, then go find the people who want to smoke. I don't, but if you want to, great. Don't let me stop you. Go find your people. I'm not one of them, but go find them. And I'm not going to prevent you from finding them. Find them.
right. I
May
love
they
that
bring
because
you joy.
I love that podcast. Like, there's this guy who has this, I don't know if he's AOC, I don't know what it is, but he is this British brother, and he's very straight laced in his
Mhm.
podcast, and he's very British, and it's like that. And then there is Drink Champs, right? Have you seen Drink Champs?
I have seen Drink Champs.
Okay. So I love the fact that Patty LaBelle was on there one day and she was like, "Look, I don't drink, I don't smoke, but I'm here because obviously I don't
Right.
mind, right? But they're gonna be smoking, cussing, and fussing and whatever else on that podcast, So like you said, it's not my environment; it is my environment. We can adjust, but you get to go where you want to go. And I say that so vehemently and on this topic because it goes back to this guy, dating coach Anwar on Instagram. And I love the fact that he said, Queens, we don't argue. Like that's the boundary, right? He's
Yeah.
like, I'm setting the stage here. If someone cares about you, if you care about yourself, this is right. This is the boundary here.
Right.
So if you want that culture, that's there, but this is the boundary. Um, I'm just so appreciative of all of it because we truly have freedom of choices. We don't have to
Yes.
get stuck or trapped. There's lots of things that you can tap into.
Lots of things. Lots of things. You always, always have choice. There is zero circumstance where you don't have choice. Now, again, the choice may not be palatable, right? You
Mm,
may not like the options in front of you because people are like, well, when somebody has a gun to your head, you don't have a choice. I'm like, no, you have a choice. You can lose your life. You can choose to lose your life. You
that's
absolutely still have a choice. It may not be, you may not have wanted to lose your life on that day, right? You may have been like, oh, I thought I was going to die when I was 92 and whatever, whatever. But the other option of doing what they've asked you to do, you don't want to do that either. So you have options. They may not be the options that you like, but there are options. And I think
but you always have.
you always have options. Always have options. And again, I think people think that choice means it's supposed to be something that one of the choices should be something you really wanted. I'm like, no, that's not really how that's not really.
No, that right there, that right there, right? The ease, the comfort, and again, it goes back to not wanting to change. The ease and the comfort, the convenience, right? All of that can even manufacture, even if you have the courage to make a shift in whatever relationship. Because there's some things to be gained and there's a lot to lose.
Yeah,
It's an exchange.
it's an exchange. That's a good word. It is an exchange. And I was just talking to someone from the younger generation. And they went in and they did their own car purchase for the first time ever. And yeah, and they were like, man, but I felt like I didn't get exactly everything that I wanted. And I was like, well, that's the art of negotiation. I mean, the a good negotiation means both parties walk away feeling like they didn't get everything that they wanted, but they got
Mhm.
80% of what they wanted. And the 80% are different for each side. So you're gonna walk away, you got a car, you got the payment in the space that you wanted it in. You may have wanted it to be less, but it wasn't more, right? So they got to sell a car, whatever their commission is. They may want it more, but it's not nothing. So like again, it's an exchange. And life is one giant negotiation.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes, with a lot of different factors that we must strive to be self-aware about how we're contributing, right,
Yes.
to those, especially if it keeps showing up, keeps showing up, right?
The only common denominator is you at that point. You'd be like, I don't know why I'm always in this kind of relationship. Well, if the people keep changing out of the relationship, but you're the only one in the relationship, then that means there's something about you, and you probably need to go sit somewhere and meditate on what that something is if you don't like the relationships that you're in.
It's true. Again, pain.
I mean, and that's with everything. People be like, man, I can't, I want to lose weight and I just can't lose this weight. Well, the only common denominator here is you and your weight. So sit down and think about all the things that you've been doing that haven't worked and figure out what
Pretty much,
where the gap is and what you might need to do that's different.
pretty much the external, or however we do it right in this room, the external is how most of us are taught to see that there's an issue, right? It's so much easier to see it, visibly on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Not understanding that the projection is just you. And when you have kids are your walking subconscious. It can be so humiliating, embarrassing, but they're just your walking subconscious floating around, giving all back to you, and you're like, oh my god. Right. So yeah, live this life is not for the faint of heart.
It is not. It is not. It is not at
This is not.
all.
And I told my friend, I said, if you think that you have conquered all your demons, get married. If you still think you've conquered all your demons, have children.
That's why I don't have no children, child. I was like, I don't need me in my face all the goddamn time. Okay, that's what I don't need. So no.
Oh my gosh. It's like, oh, right. And then when you see it back in your voice and your tone with those same facial expressions, like, wow, that's me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 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 I was like, no, pretty certain I don't want me in my face all the time, asking me, second guessing everything I'm doing. Because no. Well, why you decide to do that? I thought you said that you were supposed to whatever. And then if you did that, then how come you didn't do this? And then what about that? Because you said, remember 4 years ago when you said this? And then I was like, yeah, no,
That's crazy. My body, my choice. I'm like, oh,
Right? Exactly. Exactly.
did not.
Um, I already know all the things that I said as a kid to my own mama was gonna come back and be that much more deranged because we're in a deranged place on the planet at this point in time. This timeline is real jacked up. So I was like, I don't need nobody talking about. But I thought you said we were supposed to question authority. So if I question authority, but then I get sent to the office, then I was like, no, I'm okay. That's okay.
Much. Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. It's tough.
Hmm.
Hoarding, as they say, but maybe not immediately. Maybe it takes a 20-year investment,
Oh Lord.
25-year investment.
Man, man. Yeah. So, so I think, people are going into like 2025 or whatever. And really the only thing I tell people, and like, I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. At any point in time, it's December 31st or April, March, April, whatever. Because I think the moment you know better, you should go ahead and implement whatever you now know better. Don't wait. Be like, oh, I'm gonna wait 8 more months and then I'm gonna put this into practice. Like
I
it don't
feel
make
like
any
I
sense.
feel like I'm convicted with these clips. So this is your idea. I don't even know why you're not even okay. Too bad. All right.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, I'm glad it's you and not me.
But no, no. At the end of the end, in the beginning, in the middle of the day, again, change. There's this part of when I read Harriet Tubman's autobiography, and it's just because somebody else wrote the story, but she talked about how when she finally got to freedom and she crossed that invisible line and she done all that work escaping, and she had, she realized I don't have my people with me. Like this, it's just me,
Hmm.
right? And right, she had some work to do because she realized this isn't an individual journey,
Hmm.
right? Right. I'm responsible for myself, yes, but for her, the people she cared about, right? She could have been, people she cared about. She also wanted to support, protect, encourage, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Um, so I think um, this goes back to freedom, the stench of freedom, because what comes with that, we talked about the responsibility and accountability for how we show up in the world and how that space affects so many others, how it impacts others. But ultimately doing it yourself. And I say that because in my two recent past, kind of wait for, okay, like I kind of wait for this impact or benchmark where it's just me in my closet and there's no audience. It's just, me doing the work, just doing the work. And so, um, us not needing constant validation or applause or external rewards to keep it going, right? To
Mhm.
keep pushing and understand that if it's impacting you, it impacts, period,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
It impacts, period. So I could say, as an employee, the mind of an employee, unfortunately, a lot of times, right, we're rewarded with paycheck with somebody else giving you the paycheck, not
Mhm.
necessarily earning it, even though you are, I
Right.
get it, but it's just different.
Yeah. It's very different. Oh, yes. The employee model versus the entrepreneur model, it is an entirely different mindset.
Man, that
Entirely.
shift is huge. It's almost like letting the breast milk fall in your mouth versus, growing your own food.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's a huge shift. Yeah.
it is. It's a big shift. And not everybody's meant to make it.
Yeah.
Like everybody, people are always like, oh, go own your own business. Not everybody meant to own their own business. Like not everybody, just like not everybody is cut out to be an engineer or a doctor. So that's I don't ever, people talk about it like it's, you look down on people who are employees or whatever when you're like people who are entrepreneurs or like, oh, I can't believe these people are employees or whatever. I'm like, first of all, you need employees. Let's be clear. If you're an entrepreneur and you've grown your business to the degree of which you probably would like your business to have grown, then you likely are employing people. So if no one wants to be an employee, you now have a problem fundamentally. If you can't get somebody else to buy into your vision and put their efforts and energy into making sure that your vision comes to pass, then you have a fundamental problem. From being a philanthropic organization to a corporate entity, whatever the case may be. And so, it takes all kinds. So just like, yeah, we need doctors and lawyers and engineers, we also need plumbers and concrete layers and air
That's right.
conditioner, HVAC technicians and garbage men. And you need cashiers. When COVID came around, people understood no one valued a cashier prior to COVID. No one cared less about cashiers prior to COVID. COVID hit and them grocery stores couldn't open.
That's
Then
true.
everybody was like, "Oh, wait, what about the cash? What about the produce guy? What about oh, now you want the produce guy. Now you want somebody to take the stuff off the truck. Now you care about whether the truck or whether the truck driver who had to bring
All
the
the
truck.
service workers who
Yeah,
didn't get to take off and stay at
correct,
home and work. Yeah.
correct. So I'm like, you people are and I think this is because in part I think it's because we place so much emphasis on materialism, and the only place where you see materialism are people who have a ton of money and are like own their own businesses, run their own corporations, all this stuff. And so people think that's the value. The value is the people at the top. And don't get me wrong, people at the top have their role and they're important, right? They're equally as important because I'm an egalitarian. I think the janitor is equally as important as the CEO. Now maybe the
Uh,
CEO sets the
More
vision.
important, keep walking to a dirty, nasty place.
That's what I'm like, so you have it's a true balance scale system. You need the person who has the vision, because if you don't have the vision, then nobody really knows what to do and follow and what are we all working towards and all this other stuff. And then you also need the people who are gonna execute on that vision. Because a vision without execution is what most people have with their vision boards. We'll talk about that on another time. So
Hey,
just a bunch of pictures up there. So you need the people who are going to execute and make that vision come to fruition. So both are equally as important. Um, and so, but I think that's why we've decided to like start, like we just started to devalue and undervalue, and to some extent, have this disdain towards frontline people, the people who are on the front lines, putting in the work, putting their hands to the grindstone, and which is where this whole discussion about fair living wages and all this other stuff comes from. And it's really it's people. I never forget. I went in house and worked at this company, and pretty large scale company, a multi-billion-dollar global company, and the way that they did their performance reviews was a very interesting approach. They kind of put everybody on these lists. And then based on the names that were on the list, 10 to 20 people on a list, they would they would rank you based on what was supposed to be your peers. And so I remember when I joined the organization and they were showing me about how they do performance reviews and all that, I was like, okay, so what happens if you end up with a senior leader and an executive admin on the same list? How do you what's the how do you rate that? Or rank them? And they were like, well, arguably the senior leader would rank higher because they did it by based on what they perceive the perceived contribution is. And they were like, because the contribution of that senior leader is more broadly felt, it's more widespread. She's at the door. Um, and and I was just like, but the senior leader wouldn't be as effective as they are without the executive admin.
Yeah,
It's the same conversation we have about like stay-at-home moms
that right
versus
there.
the guys who go out and breadwin, right? Or conversely, the women who go out and the men stay at home, whatever the case may be, whatever your thing is. But when
That
there's a
power
person at
dynamic.
home, right? When there's a person at home and there's a person who goes out and secures the finances for the family to do what the family needs to do. And then a divorce happens, and then people are like, well, they just stayed at home. Well, okay, maybe if all they did was stay at home, then you're right. That's all they did. Maybe you're right. But my assumption is that the person who's staying at home is making sure the wheels don't come to a grinding halt at home.
That is
So
far more work.
yeah, and so yes, they help you go out and make the you are as efficient as you can be in and move about the planet the way you do because there's a person at home who's managing the home front, which is one less thing you have to do. You're not the one who has to set up the bill pay. You're not calling to follow up on insurance claims. You're not the one who, if you have kids, picking them up from school, bring them to school, make sure they're home. Like you're not the one doing any of that, which allows you to go be great in the world.
Right.
And so they're equal. The work looks different, but one can't exist in the form that it exists in without the other. The stay-at-home mom or dad isn't going to be very effective if they don't have the means, if they don't have a car that the person who's going out but winning the bread pays for, if they don't have a roof over their head that the person who went out, but equally the person who's out there doing the bread winning isn't going to be as successful if they don't have someone taking care of the stuff at home. And so it's fascinating to me that we really do try to put degrees on, and people will be like, you talk
Pun
to
intended.
yeah, right. You'll talk to people in corporate America and other places, and they'll be like, "Yeah, but money doesn't equate to value." Well, what else does? That's the
Mm,
currency that we use now. The
mm.
currency that we have that is equivalent to the value that you bring is money. We've decided that in this society. It's not how many vegetables you grow. It's not, that's not what we're doing. We decided that money is equivalent to value. And if it isn't, and this is always my argument when I have these discussions with senior leaders, I'm like, if money isn't the equivalent of value, then get rid of half your check right now. If you don't believe that that check and that title makes you feel like you are more valuable because they're paying you $2.2 million and they're paying the janitor $45,000, and you don't think that the reason they're paying you the 2.2 is because they think you're more valuable, then go ahead and get rid of your check. Tell him this money don't mean nothing to me. It does not, it's not a sign of my value. We should be able to spread it around and then see what they put in place that's going to show you the value that you are. So I'm always fascinated by the discussions around value, worth, accountability, responsibility, all of those things, because it never really makes sense the way it comes out on display in this current timeline.
I think you just gave a whole church sermon. Um, I mean, you literally just gave a whole, literally a whole church sermon, because as I drive by, where I'm staying at, there's First Baptist, there's Ed Young, Second Baptist, right? These huge, and yes, Trader Joe's, hopefully the value that we place on things we assign to money, right? We're not assigning money to good character. We're not assigning that to good values, right? Home values, right? It's based on who's doing what they perceive is valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you said, it's not even the job, because if certain people who are doing certain jobs decided they wanted to be janitors, well, then that would get the most value, right?
Correct.
That would be the thing, which is how some jobs have more value than others in the first place.
Correct.
Or how the same job can have different paid values, right, in the
Correct.
first place, depending on who's doing the job, as we all know.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
So I
look at the strikes when people go on strike. When the garbage men went on strike in New York City that time, they figured out real quick how valuable garbage men were to the city of New York. When garbage was piled up on the street and rats was out, there was about to have a whole bubonic plague break out in 5 seconds. Suddenly now, okay, maybe we do need to go to the negotiating table with them because it is important what they do. The city can't function with garbage all on the streets. Sickness and disease would reign supreme. Like, yeah.
That's true. What keeps, well, I guess change, it goes back to change. But I'm like, man, my prayer for 2025 is painful as change may be. Please, we need some ease and change for once. But as uncomfortable as it may be, that continues to be the thing, because a lot of things are assigned the wrong value.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things, and
Mm-hmm.
it needs to change now, and it can't change without the self-awareness of the person being devalued stepping up to value themselves and demanding it.
Correct.
Not with the argument, but just with the stance.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, whether it's um and I think we talked about this previously. Oh, and I saw a post about this. There is this, gosh, I have to remember these posts, but it was a woman talking about that the most child abuse is occurred by women, right?
Oh, I saw you sent me that post.
Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she was a black woman. So,
Talking about
oh, you know,
misogyny and how we got to this place of misogyny. Yep.
yes. Okay, there you go. And I was like, this is so loaded, and we need context with this. I don't like those blanket hot topic, statements. Um, But again, I always go back to, as we've talked about, self awareness and the healing from within, right? Um, that understanding and unlearning our value and what we do is an individual journey. It's an
Mhm.
individual journey. It's an
Mhm.
individual listening journey. And after we talked about arguments last time, I was talking to another mentor of mine. And as I was talking to him, I discovered, like, I've been in so many situations. How I'm gonna tie this back around. I've been in so many situations where I was, it was so dysfunctional, and I couldn't figure out at that point that there is no function in dysfunction,
Right.
right? There is no function in dysfunction. The reason why a lot of these behaviors and devaluing exist is because that's the nature of the dysfunction,
Yes.
right? So I think a lot of us are trying to make sense out of literally make sense out of stuff that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Right? This is designed to be broken. This is designed to be a dysfunction. And in order to make true value and worth out of this, you have to step outside of this and rebuild and
Yes.
rebuild. So
Yes.
in 2025, may we focus on another theme last podcast, rebuilding and minding literally our own business.
Yes.
Minding and minding our own business. We got to rebuild and assign value to what we are building. Like refocus, because you know who's rebuilding? Uh, you can call it what you want to call it. The people who worked very hard these past 4 years to get back into power.
Yep.
And that's how they got back into power. They
Mm-hmm.
refocused and they rebuilt their brand.
They rebuilt
Okay.
their brand. They done rebranded, rebuilt, rebranded, all the re's. Yep.
Rebuilt,
Yeah.
rebranded. And so shall we. And so shall we.
Yeah. One could argue, though.
Oh,
One could argue, to your point, right, about you have to get out of the system, right? You have to get out of the thing, right? Which is what I've always said about where we are right now, right? This we keep trying to make this system work. Like everybody's always like from the Civil Rights Act to wherever, we keep trying to make the system work for us. This system was never built for you. It was never intended to hold you, to hold space for you, to care about you, for you to be a consideration. And you cannot undo that. You can't undo that. And it doesn't matter how many little incremental steps you make. The premise, and this is why I keep saying that when you start something with a faulty premise, there is no way to correct that. No matter how far the outcome is, there is no correction that you can make along the way that's going to make the outcome be correct because the premise you started with was wrong. So if I have an equation where I'm supposed to get to 30, but I start with the wrong number up front, I will never get to 30 ever, ever.
yeah.
If we supposed to put if we supposed to put a satellite on the moon, we start with the wrong mathematical equation, you're never gonna land the satellite on the moon ever. It's just not ever gonna happen. So that to me is the problem with what we have here. Now, don't get me wrong. You can certainly make some small comforts for yourself here and whatever, which some of us have done a great job at. Um, but ultimately, there is nothing other than dismantling the entire thing and rebuilding it that would ever create the outcome of equanimity down the way.
Yeah, which
Never.
which is again an inside job, like getting out of slavery, but then having to decolonize the mind of what we now we're recreating these experiences ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so and having the courage to be aware of that and do that. Oh, I'm gonna throw this in here. Don't know how this is gonna float. So I've been attending Unity Houston,
Mm-hmm.
and they are January 5th, I think that's a Sunday, they are having a Black Women's Healing Circle. And I don't know anything about it, but I'm very fascinated. I'm going to show up because I've never been in one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming it's led by a Black woman, but I don't hold me to that.
Don't assume
But
it, but okay.
I'm not gonna assume it. But I'm very excited about that. And I say that because I understand that the work has to be inside, and I also say it in a very joking, mysterious manner. I had the opportunity to go to one of they don't call it Sunday school class; it's just like a class, and in the class it was several of us women, very diverse, and three or four of us were of Black American heritage, because I don't have another word for us. And we were tearing up that class with right, right. And this is during the election and all this stuff. And I was like, did they think,
Like maybe they need to heal. Let's give them an opportunity to do some healing. They seem a little hostile right now. So,
like, we'll see. But I'm curious about that. But I just think, well, I know in my continued prayers, because I hear these things going on, right? Social media, healing spaces, self-care themes for the past 2 years, restoration, radical rest, things like that. Black Girl Trek, that we're going that direction. And I just highlight women because I'm a woman and I'm responsible for my boys, my children, but I'm not responsible for what men and men do.
or what
That's not
women
my,
do. You're
or what
responsible for
women do,
yourself.
but I'm responsible for myself. So I'm gonna take my Black woman self and join some, get out of, I won't say isolation, but be more proactive, um, in different circles, to help build and bridge and in ways that I can. So I'm excited for 2025 because, Trump has shown us. Never thought I'd say this. Trump has shown us that anything is possible.
Between Trump and Martha Stewart, you can always remake yourself.
Ain't it? Ain't it?
Always remake
Yes.
yourself. And all right, now it's a white man and a white woman. So the outcomes, again, the system you're in, not for you. So the outcomes, faulty premise, outcome gonna look a little different, but you certainly can remake yourself.
Certainly can. I was gonna make a real quick. Well, maybe Diddy can.
Whoa. That
Maybe
his
Diddy.
outcome gonna be different. His outcome is going to be different. Yeah, so I mean, I will be interested in hearing how that happens. How, because well, I am on the position, but
No, go ahead.
I'll be interested in hearing how it goes for you and bring the whole experience back to all of us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know. I'm going in with a completely blank space mind. I have no idea what to expect, and I didn't read nothing. I just want to show up.
Yeah.
What we doing? What we doing?
What we
Yeah,
doing? What we
yeah,
doing?
yeah. So
Okay. Well, we will all be waiting with bated breath for the next podcast episode that happens after January 5th. So that we can all hear about the experience.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It'll be. Well, what I tell you, what it won't be. What I'm very happy about is I know it won't be shame, blame, and dogma. I know that. I know I won't be submitting into. It won't be spiritual abuse. I tell you that much. So I know it's not that this time.
When you
Look, I'm telling.
when you say spiritual abuse, say more. What does that look like? What do you mean?
Well, where's that book? In past trauma, like this book
Mhm.
that I have somewhere, 10 lies the church tells women, that text.
Oh.
Um, uh, gosh, I was raised like a lot of people were raised, where you first start with the place of the woman, right? And if you would just submit yourself to whatever theology they got going on, then that is the cure all, right? Is that
Mhm.
you're out of submission to this brand of, um, theology, which usually has to do with the man of your life, right?
True. That is true. I mean, the three most popular brands of religion all
Right,
ascribe to
right.
that,
So
yes.
I'm confident it won't be that. I'm confident that the responsibility and accountability has to do with my choices, my alignment, my attunement. So that's something that I can rock with, and that is the way that, I choose to, raise my children, is understanding that your choice is your creation, right?
Yes.
Your decision is your creation. And and we have to take responsibility for that, however it looks. And as simple as that is, it is unbelievably um not the majority of thought or opinion
Well, no,
that people.
because again, that equates to accountability and responsibility. If you're saying you create, you're the creator of the things, then if what you see you don't like, that now means you created that. And who the heck wants to own that? Nobody wants to own that they created misery. Very few people want to own the fact that they created misery.
Wow, I could see that, but it's so empowering when you realize, oh, if I created this, that means I can create something else.
One would think that is a very forward view that you have, but
Mr. Rogers want to talk about that. I thought
right,
Mr. Rogers was talking about that.
right. That's a very forward view that you have, but most people don't share that perspective, right? Because they want to blame others. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean that people didn't contribute. We're back to contributions, didn't contribute and play a role in things. But you always have choice. And um, the situation that you find yourself in, if you retrace the decision tree of how you got where you are, were decisions that you made. Short of
Yeah.
somebody, let me just be clear, short of somebody drugging you and hauling you off and tying you to a bed and sex trafficking you, that's a whole different situation. But most everybody else who's walking free on the earth right now, if you and you're in a place where you are not happy and you are not experiencing joy or peace or any of those things, to any meaningful, significant degree, then you go back and look at the decisions. And those are decisions that you made. You may have felt compelled to make those decisions, but you still made those decisions.
But you still made, and I've been watching this self-defense thing, based on our argument conversation, all the stuff that's been popping up for me. But I was watching the self-defense videos, and this man is talking about the decisions you have even in the midst of victimful situations, right? If somebody comes behind you, but in order for you to make the best choice, he goes over what we talked about, key indicators, so that you know that you're in said situation.
Right.
Such as when I was young and I was taught, if you go to a bar, don't leave your drink,
Leave your
right?
drink.
Things like that. So, or be able to trust the company that you keep at the right, that you're keeping at the bar. What type of bar? What time you're going to the bar? Who's the designated driver? Like, there's still so many factors
Yep.
that we do control. And like you said, the choice, death is a choice. It does
Death
sound
is a
horrible,
choice. Death
but
is a
death
choice.
is a choice. So give me liberty or give me death, right? These are choices that we make. We may not like the choices. I just saw this video and I watched it, Natalie, at least 30 times because I was missing the key indicators. It was this woman driving on a freeway. It looked like narrow, like an HOV. And all I see the first time I watch it is people exiting the vehicle and she's slamming on the gas and she ends up cutting off the door, right? The door.
Wow.
So I watched it 5 times and I said, I still don't know what's happening. I had to go through the comments, like, what is happening? Why is
Right.
she bowling these people over? Well, I figured out at least by the 20th time that because apparently this isn't a key indicator for me. When you are driving, right, and there's a car that stops in the middle of a lane and people getting out of the car and they're running towards you, oh, I don't know if they had guns. They were running towards her is a what's that called? A carjacking
Oh,
situation.
carjacking.
So I was like, oh, I so would have been carjacked because I'm like, where are they going?
Records and like, let me put my car in park and roll down my window. Hey,
Dead. I was like, wow, let me keep watching this because I was like, I'm looking for the gun. I'm never in my mind would have been like, they're out of the car running towards me. Let me just get out of here.
Yes.
No, I'm busy like, even the video, like, we that wasn't my indicator whatsoever. And this guy's talking about your car is the best weapon. Car versus man always
Always
wins.
wins. Oh, I don't know why people be acting like they can't use their car as a weapon. I'm like, if you don't run somebody over,
And he showed this multiple times. He showed it like when there was a crackhead bashing
I don't know why
bashing
people, I
windows in the
think people just
street.
panic
I think people
and
pan,
become
and I think
paranoid.
maybe like me, key indicator, like I'm not trying to kill. I'm nobody. I'm like if you've been programmed to keep your hands to yourself no matter what, right? It's just horrible things some of us been programmed in. But the survival instinct and a lot of us is too dead. Is like really dead.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, somebody comes towards my car and I feel like a real threat, not like right, run, like just go gun it. But it was a trip because then I watched several more videos because I thought,
Missing.
what else am I missing? Right? People rolling up on you and you not
Yeah, I
right,
don't.
you know? Now
Yeah.
there was one video and I thought, okay, this is me. And maybe this is why I take it too far. Because I thought, no, I got that one. But it was wrong. Okay. So what happened was this old dude, he looked like old dude. Okay, 50. Let me slow down. This dude was about 50. He's like in a, I don't know, fast food joint, mind his own business. Young Buck comes up to him and does like the nod in the head,
Mushed
like,
his face?
yeah, like push his face and was like, you could see him assault and battery,
Yeah,
basically, right?
basically, yes.
Posturing, pushing his head. Okay, old Buck, I guess he had that Denny's knife, bam, straight in the gut. Okay. Now, the dude who was doing the self defense class was like, nah, he's probably going to get aggravated assault because it was, what do you say? It
Or
was
not.
like
I guess depending on what
inappropriate.
state you in, because in Texas, you probably not. That's self-defense.
Okay, that's what I was saying. But he was like, if
Self-defense.
the man ends up dying, you stab him in the gut. That was unnecessary roughness.
That
But
was
I'm like,
assault the moment they put their hands on me. And I don't know how this is going to escalate. So, yes. And I'm in a seated position at a table and you standing over here. Yeah, no, I'm going to stab you in the eye with my fork if I have to, whatever.
I mean, dude didn't blink. It was like, pow, dead. Let me finish these fries. Like, he rolled up on the wrong one. Wrong. And I was like, that right there, that part would have been me. Like, I might miss a lot of indicators, but then when I do get it, it's over the top. Right?
Okay. I go from 0 to 100. There's
Yeah.
no, we don't go 0 to 30 to 60 to nothing. You just 0 to 100. I'm either out or I'm all the way in.
All the way. Like I need to see it and react, but no. If I see it, it's like, oh, I'm working on that. But I thought that was very, very interesting.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah,
Oh my God. Yeah, I
can't remember what we're talking about.
I don't know what it's talking about either. But I've been in a couple of situations. Um, and again, like I said, I never need permission to save my own life.
I
Never.
like that. I like that.
I have so I'll never there was one of the hurricanes came through. I don't remember what hurricane it was. And Martin and I packed up all things. We were leaving headed to Dallas. And the roads were I mean, there was no movement. Once you got to
Probably
45, there was
Rita.
just no movement.
Probably
Yeah,
Rita.
there was
Mm-hmm.
just no movement. Um, Again, they told me it was possibly a category 4 hurricane. So again, I don't need permission. So I am perfectly happy to drive on the wrong side of the road. Ain't nobody coming to Houston because it's a goddamn hurricane. Y'all can all stay over here in this traffic. I moved myself to the other lanes side. I proceeded to drive the wrong way on the freeway. Slowly, like I wasn't going my regular 80, but I was on the wrong
Yeah, like
side
they
of the
should have just
freeway.
opened both lanes so
And
people could.
eventually they did. Eventually they eventually after we got about 60 miles, 50 to 60 miles outside of Houston, the lanes were now all going north on 45.
Natalie,
Even this
were you just over there by yourself? Just
you coming to Houston. Nobody. It's not about to, I'm not in no one was on the other side of the freeway because no one is coming to Houston. It's about to be a Cat 4 hurricane. Ain't nobody coming to Houston. I was on the wrong side. I don't care. Like I said, I will do whatever I need to do to save my own life. So including drive on the wrong side of the freeway. I was in the middle of the grass esplanade, minding my business, driving. Whatever. I'm not. Look, y'all sit here and wait all day long. I hope y'all make it. I'm leaving. Okay, that's what I'm doing. Um. So yeah.
was it
I
just you or was it other people?
no, it was just me. I don't know
Out of
whether
all
people
those
suddenly
people,
decided after they saw me leave to do. Again, I'm not paying attention to what nobody else behind me is doing.
right,
I'm
right.
saving my own life. You can either follow or stay put. I don't know what to tell you, but I ain't. It's category 4 hurricane. What I'm not about to do is be sitting here at 8 in the morning when the hurricane come on shore. So goodbye. I'm leaving. So yes. Um. So I don't need, and Martin thought he was like, you really, I was like, you can get out and wait with them other people if you want to. Your life insurance policy is up to date. I am leaving, however. I'm not supposed to sit in this roadway and wait for somebody to give me some directions on how to save my life. I'm about to leave. Anyway, so left. Um, and then there was one other time, and I actually, and when I got home, so I'd gone to the PBS NPR station because I was a panelist on a show there, and it's on the U of H campus. And after I left there, which is my regular thing, normally when I leave there, I go by Frenchie's. This is when Frenchie's was
Oh,
Wheeler,
yeah,
yeah, it's
Wheeler
still
U
in
of
front
H.
of Wheeler
Yeah,
Avenue.
yeah.
Yep.
The
So I know
Frenchies, by the way, the Frenchies.
the Frenchies. I don't know what y'all doing with these little breakouts, but the Frenchies. And so I would every time when I would go, which was, every couple of weeks, I was on a panel, and so I would go to Frenchie's, get my little order, head home. On this particular day, someone there was like a traffic jam. I don't know why my stuff started with a traffic jam, but it does. It was a traffic jam. I'm sitting in traffic. I'm eating my little chicken, minding my business. I'm trying to eat my little chicken. I got my little roll. I'm having the best time of my life. And there's this guy who's trying to I don't know what he's trying to do in traffic. He's trying to get somewhere. But in front of me is this like long bed truck that has like these long pipes sitting on the back of the bed. So I couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
But there was enough space that he could turn his vehicle sideways. He was really trying to get somewhere. He turned his vehicle sideways, backing up on curbs, doing all the stuff. I was like, okay, we got somewhere to go. I'm eating my chicken. I'm out of my business. Light turns. We inch up a little bit. I move. I change lanes at that point, and now I'm next to the guy who was in the left turn lane. I'm in a
Mm.
lane to go straight, and then there are cars on my right hand side. And again, me still eating my little chicken, munching on my little roll. I'm happy. I'm happy as a jaybird. And all of a sudden I hear that beat, and I'm like, wait, huh? Wait, hold on, what happened? And so I look up and I'm like, okay, I don't see anything happening. Maybe it's somebody's music, maybe it's whatever. So I go back to eating my little chicken. We still at the line. You know, I know my business. And then the guy who is next to me um yells, "Yeah, you B, I'm talking to you. You could have moved." And I was like, "Wait a minute, is he who?" I was like, "What is that? What's he talking to?" So then I look up and I look over at him and he's like, "Yeah, you." And he starts yelling at me from his car. At which point
I know you packing.
I I have my hand on a weapon that uses rapid projectiles. I'll let y'all figure out what kind of weapon that was in my door. So I'm like, okay, this is not good. So I hope you stay in your car. So then he proceeds to come, like he doesn't get out of his car, but he sits on his window of his car and he has a drink in his hand. And he throws the drink at my windshield.
Oh,
And now at this point, because I don't have children, so all my weapons stay with something in the barrel. I'm not cocking nothing. I'm not doing none of that. If it come out, there's no other action for me to do but squeeze a trigger. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to kill somebody today. I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna need and in my head, I'm like, am I gonna need therapy? Like I'm really thinking about, I'm like, am I gonna need therapy if I shoot this guy? What is gonna happen if I shoot this person? Am I gonna kill him? I think my aim is pretty good. I think I could just hit him in the side and maybe just end up in the hospital. Like what? I'm going through all of this while he's throwing his drink at my window. And I'm like, if he gets off of his vehicle and proceeds to come towards me, I'm gonna have to shoot him. Like I'm gonna have to
right,
shoot.
right.
His light changes. He slides back in his car. He drives off.
So he was already out of his car.
He was sitting on the window. So you know if you roll down your window and you
Uh-huh.
like put yourself on your door, like
Uh-huh.
your legs are in your car, but your butt is
Okay.
seated on your door where the window was rolled down at.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he's seated like that, and he's over his, so he the hood, the top of his car, and that's where he threw the drink at me from. So then all he had to do was just, slide out of the car like Dukes of Hazzard style and run around the car and do whatever. And of course, I'm looking at his hands because I'm trying to make sure he doesn't have anything in his hands. I only saw a drink. So I wasn't concerned about like a weapon or anything because he only had a drink in his hands. Not to say he didn't have a weapon in the car somewhere else. Um, but I mean, I had but at that point, it had let my weapon of choice had left my door handle and was now in my lap with in case. And, but then he drove off. And by the time I got home, my heart rate was still like I was still in the experience when I got to the house. And Martin was like, why are you shaking? I was like, I almost had to kill somebody today, literally.
Oh, he wasn't with you.
No, he wasn't with me. I know the one time Martin not with me. He was he wasn't with me. And he was like, what are you talking about? And like I could barely like restate the thing. And he was like, oh man. So I was like, see, this is why I'm not ever going back to Frenchie's again. I was minding my business with my chicken, and then I got a drink thrown on the car for some stuff I ain't have nothing to do. And I'm like, I couldn't move my car. It's a giant 18-wheeler sitting in front of it, a flatbed of pipes. What I'm supposed to do? And cars behind me. That's why you were sideways, dude. Anyway, and then the other part of me was like, when I was telling Martin, it was a black guy, had on it was a black guy, he had on a white wife beater. And like when I got home to Martin, I was like, after that incident and I was driving in the car, the only thing that I could think, aside from the fact that I almost had to shoot somebody, was I was like, man, what in his life is so bad that you thought just the sheer fact that you couldn't maneuver in traffic appropriately, that it was a good idea to throw a drink at somebody's car and almost lose your life? Like what happened in your life that those are the decisions that you decided to make on that day?
Or maybe it's a decision he makes every day. We
It
don't
might
know.
be a decision, but I'm like that, but there's a root cause to that decision making preference. And I'm like, what happened in your life? What is currently happening? What happened in the past? And do you have a girlfriend and do she deal with this? Or a wife? Like, who is dealing with all of this? Because I'm absolutely certain if you do this with strangers, you probably doing this at home too. Who else is like, that's the only thing I can think of after that.
I'm to the point where I don't, it's gonna sound, well, it sounds how it sounds because you could be doing it forever. I don't care what you're dealing with. We
I
all
agree.
as adults, right,
I
have
agree.
to deal with our own shit. We have stuff to deal with,
I agree.
right? And we have people who have mistreated us, and we have to have the courage to walk through the healing. And on the way, we probably mistreated others. And still,
And still, yep.
he almost chose to die that day.
Yep.
That would have been his choice alone. And it's not okay. It's not fair, and it's not right to show up that way in the world,
Never.
right? And it's just disgusting. And we see a lot of it. I pray that those of us who experience this in 2025, right? I'm not going to pray about people acting out, but I pray because you already know what your issue is. And if you don't, somebody's going to remind you.
That's
But
correct.
for those of us in this situation, right, in 2025, that you made some key decisions before it happened. You made sure that you had your form of protection, right?
Oh, yes.
Right. Right.
Never leave home
So you
like that.
kept your car rolled up. You didn't get out and try to
Please.
escalate the situation, right? So you had someone who was accountable to you as you got home to check on you and to make sure that things were okay with you going forward. So I think when that does show up, right? When that does show up, having a mental plan, a spiritual plan, and a physical crisis plan of how to maneuver to the next steps, how to
Right.
maneuver in the moment. Because unfortunately, we do have some emboldened bulls yet again in
We do.
2025.
We do.
You
And
know,
it's escalating. Like they're plentiful in number. Like they weren't as plentiful in the past, and there seems to be an increase in their numbers.
increase in the and still and yet, and this is perspective for me. And still and yet, there have unfortunately been the number one, and I don't know if it's true, I heard it, but most women suffer at the hands of their lovers, right? So even
Hmm.
without Trump, right, most women suffer at the hand of their
Oh,
lovers,
yeah.
pass that on to their children. And yet and still, we still have these choices with or without this administration to make the best choices for ourselves to get towards safety, health, and well-being, right? We
Yep.
may not like the choices, which means you may have to go to a shelter, which means you have to go to a friend's house, break up with somebody who you're depending on their financial,
Right.
well-being. Your lifestyle may change. You might
Right.
have to switch jobs, be unemployed for a little bit. um but one bell that I want to ring true is no one deserves to be disrespected, right? No one
Right.
deserves to have to subject to anything outside of love. Like we don't have to tolerate that anywhere else in our life.
Correct.
Period.
Period.
Right? Government, relationship, workplace, we don't have to tolerate these things anymore. Like
Right.
that's over if we choose for it to be, right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
that does not depend on the other person. That
Correct.
is a decision that we make. And yes, death is an option. Death is an option,
Death is always an option.
right? And
It
as
may not be
morbid as that
palatable,
seems,
but it's an option.
it's an option because at that day, like you had the gun on your lap, and you were like, if I need to, if I need to
Hey,
paddle my way out of here, that's what we gonna do,
that's what we gonna do.
right?
That's what we gonna do. In which case, death would have been the option that he chose that day. Because I can't guarantee. I mean, my aim is pretty good, but I can't guarantee. That's my aim at the gun range. I don't know what happened when adrenaline is running and pumping. And like, I don't know what happened. Maybe I meant to shoot you in your shoulder and I hit you in your neck. Now we got a problem. Like, but um,
Right. What hill are we willing to die on? And I
right.
guess as morbid as that sounds, well, we dine every day anyway,
That is
right? We
correct.
dine anyway. And women are dying for
Nothing.
preventable
For nothing.
circumstances, red flagged indicators. We're dying for less,
Yep.
right? So if I'm going to go out, and we all are, how do I choose to go out? I choose to go out loving and respecting myself in the process,
That is correct.
right? And
That is
surrounding myself by people who, as much as I can, don't red flag these indicators, right?
right. 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 Right.
In the workplace and beyond, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I would. I would agree with that. I really do hope that people come to terms with the amount of power that they have in any given situation, the options and choices that they have in any given situation, um, and that they choose themselves.
Ooh. Ooh. Ooh.
I mean, like I mean, I have like even in the things that seem that life is taught like that people have attempted to program you into believing like this notion that like family gets a pass, right? That because you're family,
Right.
somehow they get to be the ones who walk on you, who disrespect you, who don't respect your time, who don't respect your boundaries, who don't whatever. And you're like, well, that's my mom, though. Who
Mhm.
cares?
Right.
I mean, I get it. That person brought you into this planet. Be grateful that they made that decision and you're here. And now you can make a decision that as they operate in their unhealthy behaviors, that you don't have to be no part of that. I don't care who you are. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter whether you gave birth to me, whether you have contributed to something in the past, whether it really doesn't matter. The moment you have proven that you are not respectful of the things that I have asked you to be respectful of, we don't need to have no more relationship till you can figure it out. Now, once you figure it out, we can have a conversation about whether you get to come back in. Because at one point I cared about you. So I'm willing to have people I don't care about, you can fix your life, and I still am like, yeah, no, I'm good. But at what the spectrum of care. We need that need to be that's merch. A little rainbow.
How much do I care?
How much do I care? From 0 to 100. Where is the needle on the care rainbow? Um, yeah, I mean, like I will always, and it doesn't matter that people don't understand it. People be like, you're so uncompassionate, Natalie, whatever. I'm compassionate about me. That's what I'm compassionate about. So I'm going to make sure that I'm okay.
It's Gracie. Your document took too
Great to say me too.
My meeting is taking too long.
That's
Oh,
fair.
that's fair, Gracie. Okay. Okay, we were talking about care and how much we care about people
She's like, I care.
here. Oh, you care about mommy? Okay.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Okay. Give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes. We're wrapping up now. Okay. Okay. So you want to kiss back? Okay. Okay. Get it. Take too long. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, so we have these discussions. I'm talking about. We have these discussions because physical touch is her love language,
Mm,
and I wasn't raised like that, but I've done better since I've had kids.
hmm
Um, but she's 7 now. And it's probably a whole nother podcast, but she's 7 now, and I feel like it's just a bit like we need to transition some stuff. And there's another way to show care and love. Okay, because these kisses are okay. So she's like kissy face, kissy face. I'm like, hey now, like so.
Hey now.
So there is a fine line that we'll talk about next podcast between physical touch, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate with kids, with affection, with social media, right? What gets into SA, right? What doesn't. But I realized at her
Mhm.
age, there are some really blurred lines in some videos that I've seen. And I'm like, yeah, that's crazy. And then other people are like, no, he's just being a dad. So I realized this is an
Yes,
issue.
like the mouth kissing. I already know where you're going. The mouth kissing, like
The way
when
he
Tom
touched
Brady was, yeah, I was like, I don't
Will
know.
Smith and his son. Like,
Yeah. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that quite yet. I need to.
see, so that's why I am, because I've had boys and my boys are not. So I'm like, is this a girl? I don't know, but they're not affectionate like that,
Yeah.
you know. So it's just interesting to me on all levels of boundaries and value and her understanding. Like, all right, so I don't want to be, I don't want to be
Right.
touched. Like that's weird to me, and I'm telling her nobody should be touching you. Like, so we get into these serious
Right.
conversations. So,
Right.
child,
But
let's
those are
hopefully.
important boundaries too, because like I'm not a hugger. And people want to come up to me and hug me, and I'm like, wait, no, 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 I don't hug. And people just automatically like, and I'm like, shouldn't we be asking people before you put your hands on them? Like, I feel like you should ask people, do you mind if I hug you? Or do you mind if I, and then somebody
I
can say,
feel like
oh,
you
yeah,
have
I'm
to
a
deeply
hugger. Or
hug.
they can be like, no, I don't really hug or whatever. People just automatically assume that because they like something that you like it too, and they should just throw themselves on you. And I'm like, ew.
It goes into consent with me, and the more people who are admitting they're neurodivergent and all these other things, it goes into me in the issue of consent because we have so much toxicity,
Had this whole
right?
neurodivergent conversation. Yes. Yeah.
We got too much about consent because there are some people I don't want to even touch you. I don't even care if I like if you see me hug so and so. It's you I
You.
find funky,
Correct.
right?
Correct. 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 And
And
I
I'm not
truly
talking
believe
about
in
hug.
energy transfer. I truly believe in energy transfer. I've experienced it and I don't want to ever experience it again. So I don't know what all that is. Keep that to yourself. I don't want to feel it. Bye.
Yeah, sometimes I just don't. Yeah, I don't want to touch you. You off to me,
Yes.
and that's mm-mm.
Right. I agree. I agree.
Consent. Okay, so we've done arguments, we've done apology, and ooh, baby, consent is gonna set this on
Consent is
fire.
going to be a thing. Consent is going to be a thing. So yes, you will have learned how to heal and talk about consent the next time we meet. You have
And have a merch
learned.
shirt, right? We need to
You
get
will have
these
a
shirts.
whole merch shirt too. All of the things. All of the things. Next time we gather for the big black tent.
All right. Well, until next time, keep it safe for the non-New Year or New Year, whichever you choose.
Don't go out there and catch something you can't get back. Okay. Okay.
Until next time. See ya.